All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to, the NBA Hockey YouTube channel or podcast or whatever. Um, this is just a quick little uh kind of update before we get into this episode. First of all, I was just on holidays for the last week or so, so that's why there wasn't a Stanley Cup final um recap episode. That'll kind of be encompassed into this, but me and Jack both talked, and we are just going to rebrand the YouTube and the um, podcast channels as NBA Hockey, and then when we do our whenever Jack's on, that'll be just Ringside Regression as a podcast hosted on the MBI platform. Mostly the reason why we're doing this is because of inconsistent branding. It's really hard to market my own personal Instagram page as well as the podcast and social space being different. Most of the people watching this are subscribed to NBA Hockey on Instagram anyway. So if you're not, follow me on NBA Hockey. But this will be the same content. He's not leaving. We're just adding Rinkside Regression as a part of the overall NBA Hockey audio and video sphere. So the episodes of Ringside Regression will be labeled with an RR and then the episode number. They'll also say that on the thumbnail, whereas these videos will be more just kind of extra videos that either me or him or whoever else, if we end up bringing somebody else in to make content, then maybe they'll jump in as well. Who knows? But that's just kind of the overall explanation for that. So everything else is the same. Nothing else is changing, but the branding of the page and the podcast faces are changing slightly, but that's not nothing else is changing. Like Jack is not leaving. This is a conversation that me and him both had like 2 days ago, and it just makes sense for branding. So there's that. Anyway, Stanley Cup final. Obviously the Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup. This was definitely not as good of a Stanley Cup final as last year's was. It was good. I don't think it lived up to the hype that everybody else had going into it, which was going to be hard to do anyway, to be honest with you. But yeah, man, the Florida Panthers, really dominant performance throughout these playoffs. Just totally shutting down superstars on every level. And of course, now you have the salary cap discussion, which is interesting. People have things on it. I might make a whole video if people want to hear my full opinion on that. But the closed notes version for me is, I think it's a very minimal advantage. And I think it's only an advantage to teams that already have established really good front offices. In the same way that like the city of New York or the city of LA is really appealing to people, but is only an advantage if you can use it properly. Like, right? Like, I mean, no tax states are always going to be appealing to players. That's not like that, sure. But if you're not able to utilize it correctly, then you're not going to build a successful team, right? Like, I mean, Nashville and Seattle have been two of the most active free agency teams in the last couple of years, both of which don't have state taxes, both of which were probably hurt by the fact that they were able to more recklessly spend in free agency. So I think it really does depend on what the team itself is able to do with that tool. And in the same way that like New York is really appealing to players, right? Like players are always going to want to play in New York, but if you don't build the team properly, you end up with what the Rangers put together this season, right? So I get it. I get the frustration. I don't think it's an inherent advantage that suddenly makes you a very good team. And I don't think it's anything the league really needs to like jump out of their way to address. If they want to address it, then by all means give us a soft cap, right? Like my closed notes version on what the salary cap system should look like, it should be a soft cap where teams that go over the cap, the tax they pay goes into the the fund to support the other teams, right? It goes into revenue sharing. That's the word I was looking for. So teams like the Leafs don't actually pay into revenue sharing unless they go over the salary cap. And teams that receive revenue sharing can't go over the soft cap limit. Right? Like I think that just kind of solves the issue right there, right? Because everybody's freaking out about the fact that like the Florida Panthers were a revenue sharing team, and now they can spend all this extra money because they don't have salary cap, and now they're really good. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but sure, like the Calgary Flames were in revenue sharing a couple years ago, so was Ottawa. Like this isn't just a Southern U.S. issue. But that's a whole nother point. In terms of like people thinking that like everything's rigged for the Florida Panthers to win and that Gary Bettman hates Canada, I'd urge you to find me a management group in Canada that has put together like a competent stretch of like 4 seasons since 1993. Like I'll give you one. The like 2009 to 2012 Vancouver Canucks. Maybe. But like other than that, like I'm talking like from for 4 years were put together like consistently good moves, didn't have a lot of blemishes, didn't set themselves up for failure in the future. Stretch. Right? Like you can obviously go all in. Teams have went all in, right? Like the Ottawa Senators had a decent stretch and they ended up going to a Stanley Cup final and they had a Stanley Cup level team. Sure. Maybe you can point to that the early, the mid 2000 Ottawa Senators. Sure, right? But like the Edmonton Oilers had like one run, right? Like that's not really common. And even like the Oilers management now isn't very competent. They just have McDavid and Draisaitl, right? Like I don't think they've done a fantastic job utilizing all their assets. They've been fine, but like I wouldn't say that the Oilers management team has been like a top 5 management team in the league in the last couple of years. So like that's what I'm saying, right? Like it's yeah, sure, you can point to the correlation that Gary Bettman stepped in and now all of a sudden NHL the Canadian teams have stopped winning. It's like, well, Canadian teams really weren't winning before that either, right? Like the Canadians were winning, right? Like you had the Oilers in the early 80s, and then you had Calgary win one, and then Montreal won 2 Stanley Cups, and that's it, right? Like it wasn't like this wave of like every Canadian team being really good, right? It was the Oilers having Wayne Gretzky, and then the Flames and Canadians in the late 80s, and then Montreal 93, which wasn't they weren't like a juggernaut team either. They kind of went on a bit of a Cinderella one with a bunch of overtime wins. So like I like that's my argument for it, right? As a Canadian, right? I want to point that out too. I'm not some Southern American making this argument. I'm a Canadian. I just think Canadian teams have been largely incompetent over the last 20 years. Like let's be honest. Like let's call a spade here. They really have been. So I don't read a ton into that side of it. But hey, I mean, if it makes you feel better, by all means, go ahead. In terms of the final thing I want to say about the Stanley Cup final is the Corey Perry 5 final losses in 6 seasons is insane to me. Like it is. It is so devastating. Like the fact that Corey Perry already has a Stanley Cup makes it less sad. But man, like, and he won that cup basically like as a rookie, right? Like essentially. This is real sad, and it's like he's been on 4 teams, 5 Stanley Cup Finals. He's been a really big part of those teams too, right? Like I mean, on the Canadians, like that 4th line from Montreal was huge. He stepped up and played with Connor McDavid this year with the Oilers, right? Like in Tampa Bay, he was a good depth piece for them. I guess Dallas is probably where he was the least impactful of the 5 teams, but like, still, like I mean, like he was a solid bottom 6 forward there too. So like, it's it's crazy. But maybe he'll get it. Maybe he won't. But yeah, 5 and 6 years is pretty ridiculous. So shout out to Corey Perry there. Other than that, we'll kind of just go through some of the news that happened. Eric Howlow was traded to the Nashville Predators. I don't hate that move for Nashville. I think for the Devils, it just kind of let's get some cap room and maybe we can make a move here. We'll move some pieces around, see what happens. I think Eric Howlett was fine in New Jersey. He had moments where I really liked him, but I don't think he's like moving the needle for the Nashville Predators. But it's not a bad like bottom 6 forward add to a team that needed a bit of depth. So maybe he can add a bit of scoring into that bottom 6. We'll see. Fabian Zetterlund signed an extension. I love Zetterlund. I'm happy with that. 4.275 for 3 years. I think it's a pretty good cap hit for him as a middle six forward. Probably somebody you'd rather have uh, on your third line than your second line. But I really like Zetterlund. So hopefully he can continue to be a nice young kind of depth piece on a roster. Matt Duchene signs a 4-year, 4.5. The 4 years seems 1 year too long for this deal. Matt Duchene's been really good in Dallas, so I don't hate it. And Dallas is just like, they're so deep that like it's fine even if he does take a bit of a step back because of the cap space that they're getting off the books with Ben and Sagan. So like it's not that big of a deal, but I think it's a good overall retaining move for the Dallas Stars. They've been pretty active in this early part of the season. I think for a team that definitely expected a Stanley Cup run and didn't get that, it'll be interesting to see how else they attack this. Obviously, already firing their coach, and now the Matt Duchene move, and there's another trade that they pulled off of Seattle that we'll talk about in a second. But Dallas is an interesting team, man. It seems like they're a team that could be looking to add a defenseman too, especially with how bad that blue line looked after Heiskanen went down. I think they've kind of learned their lesson that blue line wasn't very well constructed. So we'll see. I mean, they're an interesting team. Obviously, Jason Robertson is in a bunch of talks too, so they could be a really fascinating team as well. Yeah, I mean, Mason Marchment to the Seattle Kraken for a third and a fourth. Yeah, that seems about right, right? Like I think Marchment. First of all, from the Stars' perspective, just moving off salary cap is something that they had to do anyway. Maybe this means that we don't see a Jason Robertson trade. I don't think a Jason Robertson trade would be a very intelligent move, but maybe they feel like that's necessary. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but depending on what the offer is, obviously, if there's a crazy offer out there, and hey, maybe it makes sense. But Marchman kind of feels like a guy that they'll be fine moving off of. Obviously a former Florida Panther, really fit that Panther system too. But Seattle's interesting. I still don't get what the plan is in Seattle. I don't know what exactly they're trying to do here. Obviously, they moved up Burakovsky, which we'll talk about in a second, but just kind of a strange overall situation there. But Marchman's fine. Like he'll fit the team. Like he's a good player, but I just don't know what the direction is here. Like I don't think Seattle's in a situation where moving out a third and a fourth round pick makes a ton of sense for them. I think they need to be tearing it down and trying to acquire assets here, but they're just kind of in no man's land right now, and this trade continues in that move. For Dallas, it was kind of a cap casualty, so I don't think it's that big of a deal there. Jonathan Toews to the Winnipeg Jets. It's a fun story, right? Like I think if you're going into this with the expectation that Jonathan Toews is going to step in and be the number 2C for the Jets, and they certainly paid him like he might be their 2C, man. Like wow, but 1-year deal, $2 million that could turn into $7 million, depending on a bunch of things. Now, to be fair, getting to the full $7 million means that the Jets win the Stanley Cup. Don't know if I'm quite there yet, but I mean, if you're expecting a 37-year-old Jonathan Toews who hasn't played in like 2 years to come in and be the second line center that Winnipeg's been looking for in the last couple seasons, you're going to be disappointed, right? Like I don't like that's not who he is anymore. That wasn't who he was in Chicago when he was healthy at the end of his run there. So I think at like the realistic expectation for me for Jonathan Toews is a bottom six forward who hopefully still has that defensive game or enough of the defensive game to be serviceable in a bottom six. And then can just kind of be a fun like guy who's going to lead the team in jersey sales, right? Like that's for a team that's kind of been desperate for cash and has had a ticket issue. Jonathan Toews makes a ton of sense because he's going to sell tickets and he's going to be their number one jersey sale player for the team, right? Like absolutely. Like there's no question. He's going to lead this team in jersey sales. He might be one of the top jersey sales in the league because of being from Winnipeg and being Jonathan Toews. So like that's cool. But from an honest perspective, like I really don't know what else what more you can like I don't even know if I'd love playing Jonathan Toews at center based on what we saw last time and the fact that he's been off for 2 years and he's 37 years old. Like I don't know where he's at, right? Like there's a lot of speculation here. frankly, it's all just kind of guesswork. But if we base off what we saw in Chicago, it was a guy who probably should be your third line center on a decent playoff team, right? And like I don't think that's a bad play. Like if you look at Colorado, right? Colorado was the other team in on him. Where does he play center on the Avalanche? Like what center is he knocking off of those top three? Right? Like he's not better than Nathan McKinnon, right? Like he's not better than Nelson, and he's probably not better than Charlie Coyle. So you're like he'd be the 4C in Colorado, and maybe that's why he didn't sign in Colorado, right? Like maybe that's one of the reasons why he wasn't the option there, right? Even you look at Montreal, and I feel like the Canadians were kind of in a similar situation as the Jets, where they kind of wanted him to be more of a top six center than a third or fourth line center, and that would kind of concern me too. But that's kind of my biggest worry here is where does Jonathan Toews fit into this lineup? And if the Jets are kind of content with their center core right now, that would worry me as a fan because that center core isn't good enough, right? Like if Scheifele gets hurt, your options at 1C are a 37-year-old Jonathan Toews who hasn't played in 2 years, or Vladislav Nemestikov, right? Like I don't see a 2C on this team. I see a bunch of 3Cs. I see a couple 4Cs and Mark Scheifele, right? So it's like maybe Cole Perfetti finally grows into that role. Maybe that's the plan. But if the Jets are serious about contending, like they need to make a move for center, and you can do that on the trade market. There's players available. There's players who are out there potentially. Like hell, if the Canadians are shopping Kirby Dach, like I'd take a flyer on Kirby Dach before I go into this season happy with what I have, right? Like, so there's some options out there. I don't think Jonathan Toews is the answer there. It's a really fun story though. Like I have nothing wrong with the signing itself. I think it's a solid fit in the lineup. If he's going to be like your 11th best forward, he could be useful in that situation, sure. But even if he's your 11th best forward and he's playing, he beats those games thresholds, you're paying him like $5.5 million, right? Like that's. And now, granted, all the bonus money would affect the cap next season rather than this year, but something to consider, right? With the cap going up, it probably won't be as big of a deal, but it's kind of dead money that you're throwing around. So we'll see. I mean, games played, they can manage that too if they wanted to, right? Like if they don't want to play him. I think the fact that it's games played makes me feel like the Jets don't see him as their 2C just because they did games played instead of points, right? Like if it was a points threshold, that would tell me more that they expect him to play higher in the lineup. But games played means that they can like manage it, right? Like they don't expect him to play 70 games, which is a good sign for Jets fans because that means they don't see him as their 2C, right? Like that's how I read that in terms of the games played threshold. So just kind of an interesting sign there because usually bonus money is points. So the fact that it's especially for older players. So the games played threshold is interesting, but it makes me think that they're less. They're a little bit more hesitant to play him as their 2C. Some other news around the league. Maverick Bourque and Nils Lundkvist signed in Dallas. That's fine. Cale Fleury re-upped in Seattle. Sure. Andre Burakovsky for Joe Veleno. Like Joe Veleno looked fine when he was traded to Chicago. He had some moments. I'm surprised that they were fairly willing to move off him, especially for an Andre Burakovsky that's kind of going to be playing the same role. It was an intriguing. I think Burakovsky has more upside, but I don't know. It's this kind of is just a strange move for both teams. I like it better for Seattle. I don't think it moves the needle for either team, but it's intriguing, I guess. Again, don't know what the plan is in Chicago. I mean, based on the recent rumors, it sounds like Frondel's going to go 2 to San Jose, which leaves Misa available to Chicago at 3. And I mean, man, like we talked about if you go watch the draft preview. We talked about Misa and Celebrini being a crazy 1-2 punch. I mean, Bedard and Misa is an even crazier 1-2 punch at center. So, I think that's an interesting move. And I mean, man, like Michael Misa just kind of caps off what would be an insane young core for the Blackhawks coming up. So maybe Burakovsky just adds a bit more stability to that bottom six. And if that's the idea, then sure. But I definitely think this is kind of a it's time to prove it season for the Blackhawks, especially if it is Misa, because the pieces are there, man, and you can't really be wasting any more of Connor Bedard. So I hope this is the indication of an aggressive offseason for the Blackhawks. They also bought a TJ Brody, which is kind of fascinating to me. I mean, Brody was fine. It saves them a bit of money. It is what it is. I've been a TJ Brody fan for quite a while. I think he got a lot of unnecessary hate in Toronto, and I think he had an opportunity to be good in Chicago, but he just he couldn't get on the ice a ton, and it makes sense from that aspect. But uh, I hope he gets one more shot somewhere. Just kind of as a depth like seventh defenseman, I think he could have some use there. But yeah, bought up by the Blackhawks. It's kind of an interesting move there. Trevor Zegras. This is somebody that we talked about for a while here. Trevor Zegras to the Flyers for very little. Ryan Poehling is second and a fourth, and this is the second this year. So this was kind of surprising to me. I didn't expect the Ducks to be this aggressive in moving Zegras, especially if this was all they could get, right? Like I have a lot of trouble, and maybe the league is just that off of Trevor Zegras that like this is kind of just where they think they're at. But I have a lot of it's very intriguing that like if this was all they could get, why not just hold on to him and see what Joel Quenneville can do? Because it seemed like the Trevor Zegras like halt in progression happened when Cronin stepped in, and I at least wanted to see what Zegras could be in Chicago. Right, we talked about this a lot when we did the Ducks like offseason preview, and unfortunately we just weren't able to get all those out. So if your team wasn't done, I apologize. We talked about all the bad teams, but I kind of wanted to see what Joel Quenneville could do with Zegras, because he had a lot of like Patrick Kane in him in terms of like the way he played. And I kind of wanted to see how Quenneville could get that out of him. It's a shame we're not going to see that, especially replacing him with Ryan Poehling, who I like Ryan Poehling, but he's definitely not a dynamic guy who could potentially, step up into be a, top six forward. And on the flip side, I mean, the Flyers are just adding a lot of another really talented raw player, right? Like another guy to put alongside like a Matvey Michkov and the rest of that sneaky nice forward core that Philly has growing. I just don't think the coach is very good fit, right? Like I don't think they did a good job with the coaching hire in Philly. So it it's interesting. Like it seems like both these teams have like an idea for their identity for their roster, but then like the coach they hired isn't like the guy for that roster, right? Like this feels like a move that would have favored Greg Cronin's coaching style more than Joel Quenneville's. So I mean, I'm intrigued to see how that plays out, but I think that Zegras, if placed in the right position, could have a nice season if he can stay healthy. He's an interesting player, so we'll see. But for now, I like this trade for Philly. I think it's a really low risk move. They really didn't pay anything. I don't see a situation in which the Ducks win this, right? Because like Ryan Poehling's ceiling is so low that like him becoming like the team's third line center is probably not ideal if you're trying to be contender, right? Like Ryan Poehling is your 4C is solid. But I don't see like there's not enough upside in what the Ducks got back here for me to say they won, right? Now, when looking at trades like this, it's hard to like I don't judge them based on what you do with the picks. Because every team with those picks might do different things, right? Like whoever the Ducks take with that second round pick this year might not be who the Flyers would have taken. So you can't judge the success or failure of a trade based on the other team's scouting department. I think that's a little unfair. But in terms of like the actual assets, the physical assets in this trade, it's hard for me to see a world where the Ducks like win this in terms of like a runaway, right? Like I think the Flyers could bottom out with Trevor Zegras and like he just doesn't work out, but the acquisition cost really wasn't that high. So it's hard for me to say this wasn't a win for the Flyers. In terms of other things, there really wasn't a ton. The Evander Kane trade that just happened today. Evander Kane to the Vancouver Canucks for a 4th round pick. Man, this is pretty much a fleece by the Oilers. They get out of their cap situation. They get off the $5 million, no salary retained, and they get a 4th-round pick. Sure, right? Like, I think this trade would have made more sense. I would have been less angry at this trade if it was Evander Kane and a 4th-round pick for future considerations. But the fact that the Oilers actually got an asset back and didn't have to eat any salary here is really good for them because they have extensions to do. They don't have a lot of money to do it, and this just frees up $5 million on a contract that for a player that wasn't worth $5 million. I don't see what the benefit is here in Vancouver for a team that was like a middling team last season. And frankly, it was a middling team the year before and just outshot their problems with a crazy shooting percentage. It was pretty easy to see the regression happening in Vancouver. Like, they weren't going to be as good as they were that season. I don't get this. Like, I don't. There's so many better ways you could have spent $5 million. And frankly, there's so many better ways you could have spent a 4th-round pick, right? Like, you could have traded for Mason Marchment, right? Like, I don't. Yeah, this one is a little fascinating to me. So I didn't get it a ton. But we'll see. I don't know. Riley Smith signed 1 year, $2 million with Vegas. It's a good contract. It was pretty expected that he was going to re-sign in Vegas, so that's fun. Final thing I want to touch on is the Hall of Fame class. First of all, Jennifer Botterill, as a Winnipegger, seeing Jennifer Botterill get into the Hall of Fame was great. That's fantastic for her. She was just inducted into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame last year, so there you go. Now she's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Very much deserved. So that's just kind of for me. I think this class was really good. I think this was about as good of a class as you probably could have had, right? Like, Joe Thornton, absolutely a Hall of Famer, right? Despite people remember the last like 3 years, like people will only remember the end of the San Jose / Toronto Joe Thornton, where he was like a third liner. Prime Joe Thornton was like one of the best players, if not the best player in the league, in a era that had a ton of really good players, right? Like he was in contention for one of the best players in the league with, the end of Mario Lemieux's career, with Jaromir Jagr, with Yzerman, Sakic. Like, he was in Modano, like he was in that group, and he won, though he won the Hart while being traded halfway through the season. He led a ton of very good San Jose Sharks teams. Unfortunately, couldn't get it done in the playoffs, but team success is team success. I don't think you can really pin an individual accolade like the Hall of Fame on the lack of having a good team or a team that didn't get it done. So Joe Thornton is an absolute for sure pick. He wasn't going to get in this year. He probably would have gotten next year anyway. Zdeno Chara, same thing. I mean, at times the best defenseman in the NHL, a guy who played very well basically up until his last year in Boston. Like, he was an extremely effective player pretty much till the end of his career, which is insane for a player of his height and his size and his age. Never really the fastest player, but super effective, knew how to use his body properly, was able to close up gaps better than a ton of defensemen, even big defensemen, right? Like, Tyler Myers had a lot of problems doing that. Zdeno Chara knew exactly how to use his height. Well, I think it's fair to say one of the greatest Boston Bruins of all time. I don't think that's a insane statement to make for a team that's that deep. And when you're in that conversation as, like, maybe the third best defenseman in Bruins history, right? Like you have Bobby Orr and Ray Bourque. I have trouble finding a third that is like clearly ahead of Chara. There's probably people that you can make arguments for, but I have trouble putting somebody clear. Like, I think Bourque and Orr are clearly ahead of him, but other than that, right? Like, that's a crazy group to be in. So absolutely slam dunk there. Duncan Keith, same thing. Revolutionized how defensemen play, right? You had a generation of defensemen trying to be Duncan Keith. And has led to players like Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes playing the way that they are. So when you're able to change the game like that, absolutely slam dunk pick there. And I mean, finally, right? Like, it took way too long for Alexander McGillney to get into the Hall of Fame. Like, far, far too long. But it finally happened. It was finally his time, and it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to ask you. I think it was Chris Carter said that nobody's going to ask you how long it took. They're just going to ask you, are you in? And for Alexander McGillney, he's finally in, and it was so deserved. He should have been in 14 years ago. And just the not even just the on ice reasons, but just how he got to the NHL is so incredibly important to the story of the NHL that he deserved to be in almost purely based on that. But even if you take that away, I mean, his numbers are phenomenal. Clearly a Hall of Fame resume. It's really unfortunate that it took this long for him to get in, but he's finally in. Truly just a slam dunk class for the NHL here. And yeah, I think that's a great note to kind of end this episode on. So like I said, this isn't technically an episode of Ringside Regression. It's not going to be called that. The only episodes that will be the ones with Jack. But so that's the little rebrand thing. But we will be back. He will be back. It's not over. Thank you for watching. And we will see. We have a ton of off-season stuff planned, including the my off-season deep dive series, which a lot of you may have subscribed for. So those will be coming back. If you want to go check out last year's, they're available. If you want to check out the outline for this year's format, there's a post on my Instagram. So go check out NBA Hockey. Link will be in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one, which will probably be a free agent episode, because I don't think we're going to do the draft recap until I have people who are ready to do the draft recap. But we'll have a bunch of stuff. We have draft, trades. Maybe we'll do an off-season free agency primer episode before free agency opens. So lots to expect. And then, of course, the deep dive series will start in the middle of July. So thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.